This video is about the doshas, which are a core framework for understanding Ayurveda and how it can be useful to you. So we have 3 doshas here, and we've got the Vata, the Pitta, and the Kapha. So let's learn more about them. First of all, what are doshas? Well, essentially, they are defined patterns that we see in nature. We see them all around us in our climate, the seasons, the time of day, in our age, in our current circumstances, in our bodies and our minds. We see these patterns in food and in the qualities of the imbalances that we experience. Essentially, if you think about yourself as being the center of the universe, we've got you, which is comprised of your physical body and your mental emotional body, or your personality. And then we've got your life situation, which has certain doshas. Your age and life events have dosha qualities to them, as do the seasons and the climate. So you see all of these things surrounding you in the center are affecting you and your particular balance. So the doshas, starting with Kapha. Kapha is comprised of earth and water, the elements of earth and water. Earth is think about heavy, dense, stability. Water being having more movement than earth, but it's still quite heavy. It's quite dense. It fills up space. So the Kapha dosha is the dosha of springtime. So here in Alaska, we have a lot of water from the snow melting, from breakup, and we begin to see a lot of earth as well. So being revealed, this underlying layer of mud, as well as the beginning of grass and shoots of flowers. So the Cappadocia is that awakening, it's growth, it's the light coming back, it's youth, it's childhood. The Pitta dosha is made primarily up of the element fire with just a touch of water. So the fire element, unlike earth and water, it is not so dense. It's more about movement and specifically transformation. So when you burn a piece of wood, it transforms from that solid of wood to gases and to charcoal. So it moves into another state. So the Pitta time of year is when we have the most fire, which is summertime. Think of the heat, so dryness. We're also very productive. This is in our lifespans, this is the adulthood. This is when we're having children, raising families, really focusing on our careers and doing a lot of things. The third and final dosha is the Vata dosha, which is comprised of air and ether. So air is really a lot of capacity for movement. There's no solidity to it. It's very open. And then we also have ether. So if you imagine going up through the atmosphere of air, like there is still some matter in there, but you get all the way through the atmosphere, and then you come out into space, into empty, open space. That's ether. So just endless vastness. In terms of the seasons, the winter, like late fall to winter, is the Vata time of year. This is also the golden years in life. It's a period of more reflection, of more connection to the spiritual realm. Also thinking about air, it's very kind of cold and windy and dry. So just to sum it up, we see the Kapha, Pitta, and the Vata. So Kapha being earth and water, they're very, very close to the ground. And then the other spectrum, Vata, air and ether, is high away from the ground. So that's important when we think about balancing. So what does this mean for you as a person? Well, let's take a look. So the first thing to consider is that in Ayurveda, we understand that when you are born, you are essentially born in a perfect state of being for yourself. So in a balance. And as you live your life, you adapt to the circumstances around you, and often that leads you towards a state of imbalance. So the state that you're born in, perfection, we call this the constitution. In Sanskrit, this is called the Prakriti. So this is your core genetic makeup. The imbalances that happen as you live your life is called the Vikruti in Sanskrit. And this is what we work with in Ayurveda. So we say, like your Pitta dosha or your Kapha dosha, it's out of balance. It's aggravated. We need to balance it. So there's several aspects to how this works. You understand your core self, your constitution, your imbalances, and the conditions of your imbalance. What is driving your imbalance? Like what are the environmental factors of that onion that we saw that are contributing to the imbalance? And then what are the actions that will bring you back into the balance? So what are the dosha qualities that will bring you back closer to that state of perfection of your core natural self? So looking at a person and how the doshas apply, and most people are a mix of all three. Usually they have two doshas that are more prominent, and everyone has a little bit of all of them. So the Coppa Body, think about Oprah Winfrey. So Kapha is very ample, has a lot of more, has more mass, has more hair, thick, beautiful nails and lips, beautiful large eyes, a larger nose. The skin tends to be very, has a really lovely complexion, well hydrated. The bones can be shorter and more stocky. The hands stockier, a little bit chunkier. And so that is the core body type. In terms of imbalances that happen in the body, Kapha imbalances, they often involve a lot of extra earth and extra water. So too much body fat, too much water, edema. This can translate into lots of mucus, sluggish digestion, having just too much of something in the body. The Pitta body is a more what we would consider like a middle of the road or intense and athletic. We have our example here of Wolverine, who is very athletic and strong, but he's not like a huge wrestler guy. He's still fairly middle of the road. Lots of deep angles in the face. The eyes are often deep set and very intense. The body features are more medium size, so medium nose and eyes and lips. The skin tends towards redness, and the body muscles tend to be athletic or developed. In terms of imbalances that show up in the Pitta body, think anything that has excess fire. So inflammation, indigestion, heartburn, rashes, diarrhea. Then we have the Vata body. So Vata is this air and ether. So there's often more of a lightness to the body. It's thin and elongated. The eyes and nose and mouth can be smaller. So oftentimes there can be a little, maybe a crookedness or a lack of symmetry. The hair is a little bit crazy. Skin tends towards being dry. The bones are long and narrow. There's also an aspect of variation for lack of stability because of that air and ether. So there can be a yo-yoing in the weight back and forth, from lighter to heavier. In terms of imbalances in the body, Vata imbalances, anything that is dry, so dry skin, dry eyes, air in the digestive system, so belching or bloating, and then constipation as well is a very typical Vata symptom. Okay, so Kapha in the mind. Kappas tend to be very nurturing, very supportive, very loyal. With that earth keeps them quite stable and committed. They're big picture oriented. Sometimes it can be a little tough to get them moving, but then once they're moving, they have a great deal of stamina. They tend to be cuddly and affectionate and not as vocal or communicative as others, so maybe slower speech. In terms of a Kapha imbalance in the mind, think of being too slow, so lethargic, depressed, being too attached, sentimental, or just complacent where they're at, not feeling any desire to move or grow. Pitta in the mind, so that intensity of fire and transformation, Pittas are natural leaders. They tend to be very focused, very goal-oriented. They get things done. They're risk takers. They are often very outspoken and bold. They make decisions and they have a lot of self-confidence, so they stick with them. They can be very passionate and also argumentative, like feeling that they are always right, or very concerned with things being right or wrong or perfect. Imbalances, Pitta imbalances in the mind are like perfectionism, criticism, being overly critical, being too intense, being very judgmental, also angry, resentful, being jealous of other people. And then we have Vata in the mind. So this is, so Vata people tend to be more independent, go off on their own, creative, spiritually inclined. Under stress, they get scattered and overwhelmed quite easily. And there's a general sense of like a lack of focus for the long term. So they can be easily enticed to start a new project or interested in something new, and then quickly move on to something else, so without necessarily finishing a project or coming to completion. Vatas are very playful. They can be kind of hot and cold. Think of that variation. Their speech is often quite fast and rambling. So when you get caught in conversation with somebody who just won't stop talking, that is probably Vata. When Vata gets out of balance in the mind, that's when we see anxiety, overwhelm, lots of stress, getting nervous, over worrying. These are all symptoms that are very common in our culture because our culture is Vata aggravating and out of balance when it comes to Vata. So that is that's the doshas in a nutshell. So the goal here is just to help you be familiar with the characteristics of them and how they apply to you, so that you can start to see like, oh, hey, like I am a little bit imbalanced in Vata. I've got a lot of air and ether. So I can think about how to bring in more earth and water, bring in the opposite to balance out my Vata aggravation. So, and there's a lot of different ways to do this that we can talk about in another video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. Great. Well, thank you so much.